Welcome back to Walking Through the Bible. I'm your host, Lee Gibson, and we are continuing our journey a chapter at a time in the book of John. Today we're going to walk through chapter 2. In our last episode, we finished up chapter 1 with Jesus starting to select some of his disciples. As we go into chapter 2, we're first going to see Jesus' first miracle, or sign, as John explains it. And then at the end of chapter 2, we're going to see this grand entrance into Jesus' ministry. So the first miracle is kind of a quiet miracle, and it's really done with his mother's timing, as we're going to see. And then the last part is a grand, loud, boisterous entrance into the ministry, which is really done on God's timing. And we're going to see that at the end. So as we start this chapter, we're going to start off at a wedding. It's a wedding of some friends of Jesus's family. So Mary is there, Jesus is there, and the disciples are there. So to give you like a little setting here where we're at, these weddings back then were not like our weddings today that just last a few hours. They lasted a very long time. In fact, some of these weddings lasted days. So when you had your guests there, you were feeding them and offering them food and drink for a long period of time. So if you were to run out of food or run out of drink, it would really be a big disgrace for the groom's family that was putting on this wedding celebration. So it's almost like, let's say you're asking all your friends out to dinner and you say, hey, it's my treat, let's go eat. And then once you get to the restaurant, you realize, I left my wallet at home. It's like, how you got to explain that now. It's kind of a big embarrassment for you because you really wanted to treat your friends, but now you can't. It's something similar to that when you just run out. It's a real embarrassment to the family. We think that this family was close to Mary because Mary was really concerned about this family being embarrassed. So as we're starting this out, we'll see that Mary is coming to Jesus as they're running out of wine and asking him to do something. So to set the stage for what we're going to see in this setting, we have a room. It's probably a back room. It's probably where they're doing all the preparation for the food, the preparation for the wine, with the servants back there. Mary had heard that they were running out of wine. She was back there with some of the servants as they were talking to her and telling her this. So then Mary pulls Jesus back there. So Mary has pulled Jesus back into this small room, and of course his disciples came with him. So now we have Mary, we have the servants that are doing all the preparation for the food and drink, and we have Jesus and we have the disciples. And that's kind of what's setting the stage as we're starting out here in chapter 2. Then Mary pulls Jesus aside and says, they don't have any wine. So, and I imagine, again, they're probably the only ones in the room. And Jesus answers his mother. He says, well, what does this have to do with me? It's not my time. So Jesus is thinking that I'm not ready to show everyone yet who I really am. But I can see Mary. I can see her smile back at Jesus. I can see her give him that little motherly look that basically is saying, oh no, you are ready. So I can see Mary then touching the sleeve of one of the servants and tells him, do whatever he tells you. And then she walks out. And I think the servants needed to hear that from Mary because what they're about to be told that they need to do will not make any sense to them. So in the room, there were 6 stone jars that were for Jewish purification. So the Jewish people, they had a man-made ritual. It wasn't something that was in the Bible. It was something that they created, and that was to wash their hands and face before eating, which was great for hygiene. The servants would then dip out water out of these stone jars, and as the guests came in, the guests would wash their hands and wash their face. So all of this has already been done. So the jars were probably mostly empty at this time. And then so Jesus told them, looking over at these stone jars, he said, I want you to go fill them with water. And then I want you to draw some out and take it to the head waiter. Now, this is where they needed to remember for Mary to do whatever he asked, because that was their boss, the head waiter. It was basically asking him, he was saying, bring out more wine. And they went in the back and they were about to walk out with water that they drew out of a dirty tub and give it to their boss. The head waiter was probably very good at his job. He probably knew what good wine really tasted like. So in their minds, they're thinking, I'm never going to work in this town again. So they did what Jesus asked. They filled them up with water. They dipped out the water. They carried the water out to their head waiter and gave it to him. The head waiter drank the wine. Then there was confusion on his face. The servants are thinking, oh, now I'm fired. But then the head waiter called over the groom, and he told him that everyone puts out fine wine first, then after the people are drunk, brings out the inferior wine, but you have kept the fine wine until now. They only needed the bare minimum, just enough to get by, but Jesus gave them the very best. Again, this was a quiet miracle, known only by Mary, the disciples, and the servants, but the disciples saw the glory and believed in him. I think this was what the disciples needed just to, secure their belief in him, to see, yes, this really is the Son of God that we are following. So after the wedding was over, Jesus and his family then headed on to Jerusalem for Passover. So here you can almost imagine that we have these fishermen and a lot of small town men, and they just showed up in this booming city of Jerusalem with all the sights and sounds. It's kind of like if you grew up in a really small town, then all of a sudden you went to Times Square in New York City and are just kind of overwhelmed with everything that was happening. That's what I can kind of imagine as these guys go into this large town. It was very different from what they're used to. So then they go and they're at the temple, and they're there at the temple. Well, the temple at Passover is a very active place. Activity level is very high. Everybody's getting ready for their sacrifices. They're purchasing animals. So you have cattle and oxen here. You have sheep. You have doves. You have all these sounds everywhere. These animals being corralled and then animals being slaughtered for sacrifice. You have all the smells. You have the smell of the incense, the smell of the spices. And all that is mixed in with the blood and the barbecue from the sacrifice and all the animal manure. So it's just a lot of things happening to your senses. And then you have all the sounds. You have the money changing hands, coins being pushed around on the table, people haggling over prices, and occasionally even yelling over the high prices of some of these animals. And as the disciples are just taking all this in, they're wondering, where was Jesus? The last time they saw him, he was weaving leather strips somewhere over in the corner. Well, about that time, the next thing they hear is a crack of a whip. And there's Jesus running the livestock out of the temple. He's turning over tables as these large stone tables are crashing to the ground. Money is going everywhere. Coins are going. People are scrambling, trying to pick up as much coins as they can. And Jesus says, stop turning my Father's house into a marketplace. Wow, what an entrance into ministry. Well, the cat is out of the bag now, and Jesus has just claimed to be the Son of God. The disciples then remembered what they learned as a child from the Old Testament. Zeal for your house will consume me. Well, then the Jews approached Jesus and they asked, who are you to be doing this? Show us proof that you have authority to do all this in our temple, to turn over our tables, to run out our livestock. Jesus then tells them, destroy this temple and I will raise it up in 3 days. And they tell Jesus, this temple took 46 years to build and you will raise it up in 3 days? And then John basically says, spoiler alert, he was talking about the temple of his body. So we understand the reference that Jesus is making here. Then John goes on to say that while in Jerusalem for the Passover, many believed in Jesus when they saw the signs he was performing. Jesus was doing other miracles, but John is only going to give us details on several of them to help him kind of paint the picture of who Jesus Christ was. So let's read John chapter 2 together. Today I'm going to be reading out of the Christian Standard Bible. So as we read John chapter 2, verse 1. On the third day, a wedding took place in Cana of Galilee. Jesus' mother was there, and Jesus and his disciples were invited to the wedding as well. When the wine ran out, Jesus' mother told him, "They don't have any wine." "What has this concern of yours to do with me, woman?" Jesus asked. "My hour has not yet come." "Do whatever he tells you," his mother told the servants. Now 6 stone water jars had been set there for Jewish purification. Each contained 20 or 30 gallons. "Fill the jars with water," Jesus told them. So they filled them to the brim. Then he said to them, "Now draw some out and take it to the head waiter." And they did. When the head waiter tasted the water after it had become wine, he did not know where it came from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew. He called the groom and told him, "Everyone sets out the fine wine first, then, after people are drunk, the inferior. But you have kept the fine wine until now." Jesus did this, the first of his signs, in Cana of Galilee. He revealed his glory, and the disciples believed in him. After this, he went down to Capernaum together with his mother, his brothers, and his disciples, and they stayed there only a few days. The Jewish Passover was near, and so Jesus went up to Jerusalem. In the temple, he found people selling oxen, sheep, and dove, and he also found the money changers sitting there. After making a whip out of cords, he drove everyone out of the temple with their sheep and oxen. He also poured out the money changers' coins and overturned the tables. He told those who were selling doves, "Get these things out of here. Stop turning my Father's house into a marketplace." And his disciples remembered that it was written, "Zeal for your house will consume me." So the Jews replied to him, "What sign will you show for us doing these things?" Jesus answered, "Destroy this temple, and I will raise it up in 3 days." Therefore the Jews said, "This temple took 46 years to build, and you will raise it up in 3 days?" But he was speaking about the temple of his body. So when he was raised from the dead, his disciples remembered that he had said this, and they believed the scripture and the statement Jesus had made. While he was in Jerusalem during the Passover festival, many believed in his name. When they saw the signs he was doing, Jesus, however, would not entrust himself to them, since he knew them all, and because he did not need anyone to testify about man, for he himself knew what was in man. Okay, that finishes chapter 2. So thank you for watching this episode. If you missed an episode, you can go to my YouTube channel playlist and you can catch up. And I encourage you to like my video, share my video, and subscribe to my channel so we can reach as many people as possible with the Word of God. Talk to you again soon.